Well, hello and welcome to Wisdom Wednesday. Here it is January 23rd, 2024. January is already finishing up here, which is crazy. Today we are on the 31st proverb, and we will be looking at and exploring a couple of items found in Proverbs 31. Proverbs 31 is not written by Solomon. Some of the proverbs that we find, most are written and penned by Solomon himself, but many or some are actually written by other authors as well. So, Proverbs 31 is the words of King Lemuel. And what I actually love is that they are the sayings of King Lemuel, and the first 9 verses of the proverb is actually just him repeating what his mom says. And I think that that's really neat, and it's telling in a couple of ways. He like totally takes what his mom says and he lives by it, which I think is great. He also gives credit to his mom for being the one who spoke these wise truths into his life, but they are associated with him, which I think is also very interesting. And sometimes that happens in life where we receive information, and even when we give credit, we are associated with the information that is shared. And that is actually an okay thing. In Proverbs 31, it begins with the wisdom of Lemuel's mom speaking from her past experiences and what she has observed of the world around her, specifically in regards to her son becoming the king of Israel. And this is a really unique perspective that we get here. And as parents, as individuals who desire to live wise lives, not only for ourselves, but also to share and instruct others in the way of wisdom, what we see his mother speaking here, I think, is profound, because what we can notice is that she looks to see the area and the direction that her child is moving in, and then nurtures her child in wisdom in that direction. Parents, I think there is a high calling upon our lives to recognize the gifts, skill sets, natural abilities, God given gifts, and wisdom that are existing in our children, and begin to call them out and instruct them in it even from a young age, so that as they grow up they are walking in a path of wisdom, that where we've already recognized some of the points of disaster that could meet them along this journey. So his mother begins by speaking these words of wisdom from someone who has witnessed and watched how what she is protecting her son from has actually brought disaster in other people's lives. He says do not give your strength to women, your ways to those who destroys kings. I think this is almost a bit of a slap in the face to Solomon and King David, who were kind of overcome with this temptation of giving their strength to women, in a way that actually decimated and caused great tension within their households. We see that in the story of David and Bathsheba, that in that moment, David lost the moral authority to be able to continue to direct his household. And from that moment on in scripture, his sons begin to rebel and usurp against him, because he no longer had the moral authority to be able to parent in the way that he needed to. That is a profound reality that we find in scripture. Solomon is said to have hundreds of wives and concubines, and the scriptures are very clear that because of this, his heart was led astray. Now, I am not saying in any way that women are the problem in this. It was the lust and the attraction to gratifying and putting something in position where God should have been the sole source of Solomon or David's identity. They attempted to find it in other people. This is true of both genders and of multiple topics, but specifically, Lemuel's mom is cautioning him, hey, don't get mixed up with too many partners. Have one. In fact, there is a law in the Levitical law that kings were supposed to be married to one woman. And what we see is that that was not the case often, and there was never a good experience in scripture of polygamy, which is also interesting to note. Lemuel's mom goes on and says, for kings are not to drink wine, rulers are not to take strong drink, lest they drink and forget what has been decreed, and they pervert the rights of all who have been afflicted. Give drink to those who are in bitter distress, so that they might forget about their poverty and their misery. And then she goes on to say, open your mouth for those who are unable to speak or are destitute themselves. Open your mouth, judge rightly, and defend the rights of the poor and needy. There's this overarching principle of when we are in a position where we can defend and uphold righteousness, we should do so. But when we allow outside influences to subvert our ability to think wisely, we begin to neglect to understand the decrees and the things that are important. Lemuel's mom says, hey, stay away from strong drink. It is not the thing that you should be turning to every moment of your day, but rather it should be respected in a way where it is not going to detriment your ability to live wisely. Moving on to into the second section of Proverbs 31, it is about the woman who fears the Lord. And there are some really unique things that we find here in Proverbs 31 at the end that I wanted to bring forth. And one of those things is the teamwork that is indicated within Proverbs 31 found in the marriage. That when you are in a marriage covenant union, that you and your spouse should be able to and working towards communication for the sake of direction in a particular direction that both of you are working towards. If you're working in opposite directions, you're going to work away from each other, and it's going to cause significant tensions within the relationship. But what we see here is that the woman who fears the Lord, verses 16 through 31, speaks both about the qualities of the wife and the husband in relation to how they progress through life in a particular direction. Proverbs 31 indicates that this particular woman being discussed sees a field that will be good for her family, and she goes and she finds the funds, she raises the money, she works for it, and she goes and she buys this field, she plants a vineyard, and this vineyards are always long-lasting metaphors in scripture. It takes a long time to grow a vineyard. That doesn't happen overnight. And so what we see here is that this woman is working towards the direction of legacy for her children and her children's children, that this vineyard would last and be a stance and a staple for what was accomplished. But this is not done in isolation as her alone. It's done in partnership with her husband as well. And we see in verse 11, it says that the heart of her husband trusts her, and he will lack no good thing. And there's this really incredible encouragement given in Proverbs 31 to be a couple that is unified in the direction they're going. Why? So that we know that the steps we're taking day by day, month by month, year by year, the habits we're forming, the work of our hands are working towards a direction that both husband and wife are moving towards for the benefits of the family, the kids, the marriage, the work of the Lord in that community. What we see is that this establishes a legacy, not only seen in the vineyard, but also seen in some of the other verses of Proverbs where it discusses how the children are cared for and raised up and sent out in empowerment to be able to go and replicate what was done by mom and dad. There is a generational legacy that is created, and I believe that Proverbs 31 indicates that as married couples, we should be in constant communication with one another to ensure we're not going in opposite directions, that we're reading the same book, that we're even on the same page of the same book, so that when life comes at us, we can tackle it in partnership and not as isolated units within this marriage, but as a married couple. So I would encourage you, if you find yourself in a marriage, that you would put in diligent work into the communication and the long-term objectives of what you are doing. Dream together. Allow both to be able to express their dreams and the ideals that they're heading towards, and then put your heads down and work hard in the direction that the Lord has placed upon your heart with those dreams. In it, you will grow closer together. You will see obstacles overcome. You will see the faithfulness of God move through your life, and you will begin to develop a legacy for your children's and your children's children. That's my time limit for today. Thank you so much for joining me for Wisdom Wednesday on January 31st. We will see you next week as we jump into February and continue to do weekly Wisdom Wednesdays. God bless.